pretty much everything. Are you guys all local? Where'd you come from? First time coming to this? What do you think? We're gonna have a conversation, I think, because it's a small group. So, just
oh, it'll get bigger, ladies. Don't worry, it'll get bigger.
Okay. Be prepared for us to call on you. Just kidding. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But we appreciate you coming here and talking about a subject that Amy and I talk about all the time, which is mental health. And would you say that people are talking about mental health more now post-COVID than before? Yeah. And it's affecting restaurant industry a lot. We were just telling Jen, right? Yeah. We just worked on a product with the National Restaurant Association, a mental health ally for hospitality, and we learned a lot about the unique issues for the industry. So that's what we're going to talk about. But what I really wanted to do is just make sure that you all can just interrupt us. We don't want to talk at you. We want to talk with you. We want to have a conversation. So please just do not be shy, right? So we want you to really get something out of this. And if you walk away learning some new things or some new skills, then we'll feel like it was a success. So a little bit about Psych. We are a mental health education and connection platform. I co-founded it with. Hello.
It's a thing. It might cut in and out. It's a frequency thing. So just keep going.
Okay, all good. I co-founded it with former Congressman Patrick Kennedy. His dad was Senator Kennedy here in Mass. And we really, our main thesis of starting Psych was to try to move mental health practitioners, that's who we call therapists, clinicians, providers, from generalists to specialists. So most people don't realize this, but there are different ways to treat things like anxiety, addiction, eating disorder, depression, you name it. There are different ways to treat it, and yet myself included, as a practitioner, we come out of school as generalists, so we don't really learn it. So what we're focused on doing is training people, putting them into specialties and certifying them, and then we also educate the whole kind of ecosystem, if you will. I don't know what slides are on here, so I'm just going to wing it here, but we are YouTube's partner for mental health. So our YouTube channel monthly average is about 1 million views, but we're really trying to, and then we have our allies and our employees, and now we're going to be connecting them to our certified providers to do better specialized care. So that's Psych Hub, and I'm Marjorie.
And I'm Amy. I am also a licensed clinician, actually here in Massachusetts. I live down the road in Jamaica Plain. So I'm really happy to join the group and think about how I lead our clinical innovation here at Psych. And really what's been helpful is, what does this mean to practitioners? But as we know today, I'm guessing that Marjorie and I are probably the only practitioners in this audience right now. But I think that there's a role that we all have in mental health and in kind of our own health and wellness, and also in developing a community that really responds to mental health as something that we can talk about at work, in our community, with our friends, and with our families. So hopefully we'll give you some skills to talk about today.
It's pretty funny, you guys, as we were walking through, going to the different booths, I of course wanted to buy everything, but we don't have a restaurant. So we had to sort of explain, well, we're not really in the hospitality. But the dishes people, I think we might have a barter going, where we're going to give them some free training in exchange for some dishes, hopefully. Try to be creative, but very fun. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about...
Sure. So we just wanted to kind of talk through and kind of set what these conversations are like. So I'm going to put 3 kind of statements out there, and I really encourage you all to think about what your answers are. If you want to share your answers with us, you are welcome to. But as Marjorie mentioned, no pressure, but our style and really what we want to model around talking about mental health is a conversation. So both of us like to talk. We will talk the entire panel presentation if that is what you choose, but we also really encourage a conversation between all of you and us so that this can more be tailored to what your needs are. Bless you. So I want to start with people with mental health conditions are as capable as others in the workplace. So just kind of check with yourself around what you think about this. If you want to share your reactions with the group, Jen has a microphone. If you want to just keep track of what your reactions are, spoiler alert, we're going to ask you again at the end these same statements and see how your response has changed as we go through this information. The second one is getting help with substance use issues is a sign of weakness. Just pause for you guys to think about that one for a moment. And the third one is I would talk to someone if I were experiencing depression or anxiety. We say these things a lot, I just don't remember them word for word, and knowing that you can see them better than I can, it's not a test for me either, by the way. So I just want you to think about those. Does anyone have reactions they want to share with the group, or do you want us to kind of keep going and let you to think on those three things as we walk through the presentation? All right. The offer to participate in this conversation does not expire. So I will invite all of you to participate as we go along the way. Marjorie and I are the kind of people that you can interrupt. So we just wanted to put out here some numbers around mental health. 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental health issues each year. I actually think that this number is really increasing. It depends some around how you define mental health issues. I'm someone who likes to think about mental health on a spectrum. I think we all have mental health, and sometimes we have struggles in that area, and sometimes we feel like we really have strengths in that area. But that is something that exists within each of our kind of health and wellness as a whole. It is something that as you walk through this, you'll see that restaurant workers have a 17% of restaurant workers show a substance use disorder. So that is not that same kind of 1 in 5 or 20% that we think about as mental health. If you think about that just as substance use disorders, it is disproportionate in the restaurant industry, which is why we were invited to be here today, and we feel like it's really important to be talking about this. I do see some heads nodding, so even if you don't raise your hand, we know that you're engaged in participating.
I wonder, have you all in your work environments, are you dealing with individuals who have substance use issues? Yeah, like all of you. Yeah. Does it feel like it's increased recently?
My dad was a chef for a long time, and he can attest to the 60s and 70s and whatever, and how terrible it was to just not be able to not be an alcoholic working in a restaurant. So I feel a general shift as a younger chef, seeing less and less of it, but it's still prevalent everywhere.
Interesting. So I wonder if some of that is people are getting help, do you think? Or not hiding as much?
Yeah, it's just less socially acceptable.
Interesting.
So I think what I want to say on this slide is really that we all have different backgrounds. I think even thinking about where you exist within the restaurant industry, what your background is, what your experience has been with mental health, and what that means in terms of having these conversations or even noticing these behaviors in ourselves or in others around us. So what we want to talk about is really how much each of our lives matter as we go through these discussions, and just knowing that different people suffer in different ways and different people excel in different ways. So really trying to be aware of that so that we integrate it into how we respond to situations, but also how we respond to the other people around us as a community.
I could probably take on this one. So here's the thing. Someone said to me last night, how do you know if someone is struggling, right? Or what's that first step? And the thing that is really critical to realize and remember is that it's different for everybody, right? And so you're going to go through times in your life. So 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness at one point in their life. So that means if you look to the right, if you look to the left, you look at yourself, we are all going to go through hard times, and we're going to, ourselves and people around us, right? I think we can probably all relate to that. So the question really is, how do you know? How do you know how to be there for someone during a hard time? And so here are just some general things, but remember, it really is different for everyone. And so I'm not going to read them to you because you can see them, but those are kind of your most common types of differences that you will see. And I'm also going to say the number one thing that you can do is just to be a good listener. If you do not have to solve anything, and we're going to can talk about that a little bit too. You don't have to have all the answers, but it is so critical to just be able to just be a good listener and not judge and be there for people.
I love that piece, Marjorie. I think because so many people get afraid to talk about these things because they don't know what to say or they don't know what to do. And I think just being present is really, a lot of times that is enough. And knowing that not any single one of us, even Marjorie or I as practitioners, it is not our responsibility to know what to say in every situation or to be able to kind of fix it or solve the problem. What we're really thinking about is how can you be present for someone else so that they're able to talk about what's going on. I think this is the kind of stop the stigma component in being able to talk about mental health and substance use. And I think, as Marjorie mentioned, we are not going to read you a list of components here. I think this slide here really talks about the substance use disorder components. And I hope that as you see this, these are things that you can recognize either in yourself when that is a point in time where, hey, this doesn't feel like it is my normal pattern of, I'll even put it in the kind of addictions component because it's not always substance use. There are other addictions that are out there. But also thinking about when you see this around you, in your community, with your coworkers, and thinking about that from a place of compassion.
I'm wondering, our friend over there who was saying that things are maybe a little bit better than they used to be. Stigma is an interesting thing, right? We've come a long way, and I'm gonna guess, Jen, have you always had conversations about mental health?
Me personally?
No, I mean at this kind of event.
Since I've taken this job, yes, because it's something that I believe in, so I personally have made sure that some form of mental health is conversation. In fact, our next session with our women here, Knowing Your Worth, is one that I created for our women's conference. So mental health is something that's very important to me personally. So yes, the answer is yes, for the last 5 years.
It's good because that's what starts to break stigma, right? The more we have these conversations, the more people are talking about it, and then stigma starts to go away. Curious for all of you, would you say, is there still a stigma about getting help, about talking about things? Does it feel like things are changing?
If you want to talk in the mic, just raise your hand. I'll come visit.
And we might just start picking on you if you don't start speaking up.
I will also say that we'll give you an option here. Do you feel like the ability to talk about about mental health in the workplace is growing? Give us a thumbs up. Staying the same or decreasing? So we can just, okay.
That was good, Amy. That was like the most active. We got them. We got them. You know.
I know. Well, it's less pressure if everybody responds, and it gives us a visual cue. Most people who responded gave us a thumbs up, just for those of you that can't see each other. We've got a bird's eye view up here. So I think what we're talking about here is really that impact of stigma. I won't spend a huge amount of time talking about this today because I do think that it feels like it's improving and that people may understand what that kind of silence means within the industry or within the community. I like to talk about communities. You'll probably hear me say that word several times here because I do think this is our component of we're in it together. And what we really want to talk about is what does this mean to the restaurant industry? So when we say psychologically safe workplace, that feels a little buzzwordy to me. But do people here know what we mean when we say psychologically safe? We're going to get into it, okay. How much do you want me to get into it?
Or I was going to say, does someone want to share what that means to them?
Even better. Definitely. Good.
Jen, we have a hand raiser.
I'm sorry, I'm coming. Where's my hand? Over there. I'm coming. Sorry, I was distracted.
By the way, anybody who speaks, we can offer you a free cocktail after down at the
They're all free.
Shh, don't give away my secret.
So, I mean, to me, psychologically safe would be you feel safe enough to go to upper management or your boss or the owner and explain what's going on in your life to hopefully get their backing and support.
Absolutely. And do you, if you don't mind sharing, if you guys are comfortable sharing like what your work situation is, if you're like a restaurant or a vendor?
Currently, I am customer service, HR, learning, administrative, working at Big Pig Barbecue and Catering in Peabody. So,
sorry, where?
Big Pig Barbecue and Catering
Okay.
in Peabody on Route 1.
So that is super interesting, you guys, because that's an interesting role, right? You're in customer service, admin, HR. It sounds like you have a blended role, but what it means is people are coming to you, right? You're interacting in a different way than a chef or something like that.
Trying to, yes. One of the things when I introduced myself to everybody was if you have issues or just need to say anything, come to me, because then if it's a bigger issue, I bring it up the chain, so to speak, so we can address it and to make it a safe workspace,
Mm-hmm. That's great. Anybody else talk about like things that you've done or what a psychologically safe workplace means to you?
I'm coming over here.
I would say being able to take a mental sabbatical, and because I just had an employee just ask me for a mental sabbatical, and I gave it to her.
That's great.
It's improving in the company.
Which is great. So can we talk about it for a second? I'm going to drill down on. So first of all, thank you for being receptive to when that employee asked for that. And thank you for clapping, because you created a safe place for that person to feel like they could come to you and ask you for a break. So that was really good. What kind of role are you in?
Food and beverage manager.
Food, okay. And do you know this person well?
Yes.
Were you surprised?
No, it started getting a little hectic in the restaurant. So, and also the hotels. So everything was just piling up at once. Everybody else handled it very perfectly except for her. And when she came to the office and said it was too much, I said, okay, give us at least 2 days, we'll find someone else. And she took a break.
Wow. Was there a time involved or?
Well, I let that up to HR.
Okay. I think that's a wonderful example, so thank you for sharing. And this is the reality of life, because we also don't know what's going on in someone's life. It might be that work is really stressful, but that there are things going on in their personal life that are also very stressful, and then you add it all in and you can hit a breaking point pretty close.
So we're going to throw out there some more reflections for you. So this is not the have we changed your reaction to the statements from the beginning yet, but we will pause to reflect along the way. So really thinking about how your personal values align with how you think and feel about mental health. Being aware of that helps you to think about how you may react. I feel like even just you showing up here for this talk today tells us something about your values and your level of comfort in talking about mental health. But I think that's really helpful to know in terms of letting other people in your community know. So I would just spend some time thinking about what that means. How do you feel when people bring that, when people bring up mental health conditions to you? And what do you believe about people who experience those things? I think how we think about our own biases in terms of mental health is helpful as we go through how we may respond in a way that encourages people to come to us again and again in creating a psychologically safe workplace.
So wait, can we go back for 1 second?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any comments on that? Anybody want to share anything? They're all afraid to make eye contact with me.
I know. You've already kind of figured out the pattern here, that what we know about ourselves is that I am comfortable with you not participating. And Marjorie is really the one who is more pressure here with this one. She's my boss too, so. But I feel psychologically safe enough to talk about that dynamic in front of all of you. Yeah. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on psychological safety because I do think that the group has spoken about this some, knows what we mean when we say psychological safety. There's one slide here that this is the one I wanted to get to. How many people here are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Great. We've got some and not all. This is like my favorite thing as a clinician. I think I said before that I'm a social worker, so really thinking about people within their communities and their environment, that's my shtick. So I really want to think about when you get to these different levels of what it takes for people as you think about your basic needs. Do people have a place to sleep? Do they have enough food to eat? And really what you're thinking about within the restaurant community is these are people who are working because you're seeing them in a workplace. And so you've got this basic needs are being met. And then the next step up that you see here is really the sense of esteem, meaningfulness, connection within a community. And that component is where I think we can all make an impact. So these are people who, when you get to psychological needs here, this is needed in order for people to kind of reach their self-fulfillment, that kind of ultimate goal in terms of where you find your purpose. Really needing to know that you have that psychological safety within the workplace, you feel comfortable with your strengths and your weaknesses, you can talk about that within your community. This middle ground is kind of a fun one to play with, and I really say that as a clinician. And I know not all of you think that mental health is like the most fun thing to talk about, but there's a huge amount of possibility in terms of how you can impact your own mental health and that of those around you, because you're not worrying as much about the basic needs and worrying so much more about the realm of possibility and what that means and how we can all impact into a greater understanding. So thanks for letting me geek out a little bit about one of my favorite components of mental health, but I hope it is something that gives you guys some meaning as well.
So these would be some signs of if you do not have some psychological safety at work. And I would say some of these things you can only control so much, right? I mean, you can control what you do, but then there's other people in your organizations, in your place of work that Has anyone here kind of witnessed something that had created a not psychologically safe workplace? And I've had to see something and either say something or didn't say anything?
I'm coming, hold on. Getting my exercise in.
Good job.
Hello, ladies. Thank you both for being here. I think it's a very important topic. I'm from North Carolina, so I have...
From where?
North Carolina. So I'm in North Carolina with a small mom and pop shop. We do frozen desserts as well as restaurant, and we're in the process of hiring because we're opening up a new location. So I just recently interviewed someone who's thinking to come to where I am, and then she kind of started to talk about her current employer, and she said that, you know, she didn't feel comfortable there. She's had buckets of water thrown on her and buckets of water thrown on her. And so it was interesting to me that you've had this type of abuse happen and you're still there. Like, what keeps you there, and why do you feel that it's okay for someone to do that to you? And so, you know, we're in a more smaller rural community, so she felt like she just didn't have options. She has bills and things of that nature, so she feels that she just has to take it.
That's really scary. Is she gonna come work with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I assure her, you know, we're a small shop, but mental health is super important to us. So one of the things that we do with our staff and our employees, like in the summer, we'll take a Saturday or Sunday, we take our whole staff out on a trip to the beach, you know, stuff like that.
Can you hear her? I mean, how cool is that? Right? So what you're doing is you're creating a community outside of work for everybody.
Yeah.
That was like what Amy was referring to about community.
Yeah, and I think it's important because a lot of times we have younger, you know, we're considered entry level, so we're dealing with a lot of, you know, young adults coming in, some kids graduating from high school and college, so they're dealing with a lot, and so we try to create a fun, welcoming environment, you know, open door policy in terms of conversation to, you know, we're giving them life skills that we hope they'll go on to use, but also, you know, giving them confidence and courage. But I think for me as a business owner, you know, you're giving out a lot, but then sometimes I'm like, oh, where do I go?
We can all relate to that, right? You're like the caregiver here.
Correct. And so sometimes that can get tough, like we're opening 2 more locations that just kind of got thrown on my plate. So I'm feeling, you know, luckily for me, my sister-in-law, she's in the mental health field over at Wellness for Our Future. So for me, I'm able to kind of talk to her, but I have other mom and pop businesses in my community that are going through the same thing, and they kind of wonder, you know, who I go to speak to.
This is such an important topic. I'm so glad that you brought it up. So really we have 2 things. One is creating a psychologically safe place, which is also creating community at work, even outside of the normal work days, going to the beach, doing things like that. But then the other one is creating something for yourself, because it's exhausting to always be having to take care of people all the time. And let me just ask, how many of you have people in your life outside of work who have mental health needs that you feel like you have to take care of? Yeah, it's pretty much everyone, right? So now you combine all that from at work, outside of work, and then how do we take care of ourselves? And I love what you said is that you created also, this was, what's your first name? Yvania has done an amazing job of creating community. So she then has now kind of created this group of peers, of people that own mom and pop shops like hers, they can commiserate together because they're going through the same thing. And you know what's so critical is that we do these things before we have breakdowns so that we have someone there. Because once you're already in a place of having a tough time, it's hard to come up and put in these types of situations. But that's great. Great role model, and thank you for sharing.
So I think that this is the piece that I want to talk about in terms of, I like Ivana, the other piece that you mentioned that I think is really important is to think about the investment that you have in teaching someone what it's like to work with those entry level kind of staff, really thinking about you're helping them to learn what a safe workplace is like. We have more to reflect upon, right? I think as practitioners, we throw that out there, but also looking for kind of your thoughts on this as well. So if you think about your own experience in terms of what it's like to be part of fear, I think your example will really stick with me about like throwing water on someone, I think is really, I'm hoping that that's the extreme that we hear about, but I think there's other components around when you feel safe to speak and also when people tend to stay quiet. So you'll hear more about that. How do you respond when you're in a situation of fear? We think about the opportunity of advocacy and how other people responded as well. And I think those two kind of go hand in hand in terms of how you decide to respond and how other people around you decide to respond as well. Does anyone want to kind of reflect on these? There we go. Come on.
I feel like I got a pretty classic old school intro to cooking. A saute cook that I was a dishwasher and he would throw hot saute pans from the line straight into the dish pit, tell me I was shit at my job 6 times a day and whatever, just screamed at me all the time. And I couldn't really tell you why I stayed other than that the head chef was marvelous and he was stuck in the position he was in. He would have fired this guy if he could, whatever. And I just read the situation really well and it got me to where I am now, where I'm running that kitchen and I'm improving things and whatever, but I did read the situation well. I will say I knew that it was just like a couple of people, and if they would leave the culture, then it would improve. And when I finally decided to stay, it was me and a couple of friends that had been there forever, and that was our main goal. Absolutely was that fear-based culture would be eradicated as much as we possibly could. And we have done a very good job at this point. I also have an incredible amount of entry-level employees. It's a kind of summer lodge scenario and everyone else is on summer camp, and then there's us in the kitchen slaving away 90 hours a week just like trying our best. And so I have a lot of entry-level employees that want to go play with their friends, and to refer back to that pyramid, I help them realize their full potential, and they like that more than if they could have been having the classic fun. And you do have to worry sometimes about the amount that you can dedicate to certain parts of that pyramid. When you're a manager in a seasonal resort with 90-hour weeks that you're expecting from some people and whatever, but as long as you maintain a balance, I think it is possible. And I don't yell, I don't scream, I make sure that if I have a problem with somebody that I say it like a reasonable human being, and this isn't the end of the world, we're just cooking food. And I really hope that is where the culture tends to trend towards, because it's horrifying that the entry-level position is fear-based in almost every kitchen, and you have to struggle to make it to a place where it's not fear-based anymore. So
wow. Well, first of all, congratulations for enduring and making it through that. Because I think, how many of you can relate to his story? Yeah? A lot of you, huh? Wow. So this is almost like unique to the industry, where it sounds abusive almost. Like you have to earn your way in. I worked with the military for about a decade, and that feels a little bit familiar. I worked with drill instructors, and there's this whole process of sort of hazing, if you will, to get in. But you guys all have the ability to start to change that culture, right? Because it's what you allow to happen.
And I think they are. So this generation right here is what's going to save the restaurant industry and reduce that stigma for us. Right. Is that they're fixing the problem. Those environments are no longer going to exist because they had to our generation had to endure it and we hated it. So we're making that change. So it's because of people like you who are going to make this industry better.
Love it. And all of you that are here, just talking about this stuff. Anybody else have?
I'm coming, hold on.
I think there's also a bit of a trickle down effect when it comes to these issues. Like the young lady alluded to up here, when you're an owner and an operator, and especially during the COVID years, there was everything got thrown at you, and we just had to suck it up, bottle it in, and get through this thing, and then now we're seeing, in this time around, now we're seeing a lot of people just that got through the COVID and the pandemic and everything, and you got a lot of stuff pent up, and all the additional stresses with the business, and I think it's also it's creating this trickle down effect where there's not a lot of resources for folks. Let's say at the top, for folks at the top that you can turn to outside of your other owners as well in your area, in your neighborhood, and so on. That you turn to each other and go, "Yep, this sucks," and but there's really no other output, there are no other resources that we can turn to. But then as well, and I've seen it and experienced it and heard it from many other operators, that you kind of take out these aggressions, I guess, if you want to call it, but it's a trickle down effect, because you yourself have these issues, and then it trickles down to the supervisors, and then they can't take it out on the line cooks, and they take it out on the dishwashers, and so on and so on and so forth. So I think it's something that would be amazing if there were, if us as operators would also be able to find some sort of outlet or relief.
That's exactly it. It's like the old adage from the airline, on the plane. You got to put your oxygen mask on yourself first before, someone else. And that is the goal for all of us, is that we really do have to take care of ourselves. And that looks different for everybody. And that also is, some of it you can control and some of it you can't. But if you're not okay, it's going to be really hard to have an environment where other people aren't okay, right? Because we all have a breaking point. Can you guys all kind of relate to this? Feel familiar? Yeah. Thank you for sharing. All right, so now we have some strategies.
I was like, I feel like you set us up well, so thank you. We didn't even plant them there. But really thinking about this sense of what do you do to create that space for yourself? I actually want to tie your stories together a little bit, because I think there's this strength that also comes in to having that voice in your head that this is not all about me. This is some people and how they are responding, and I have the strength to respond to it in the way that is calm, future-oriented. That component that I think got you to where you are today is the piece that also kind of allows you to create a community where you have a trickle-down effect of healthy strategies. So we'll talk through kind of how you can be a role model. And look, we've got another reflection here.
Should we go through those really quickly?
Yeah, sure.
So set clear boundaries, right, as a role model. Challenge the status quo, which is kind of what we're talking about here. Take accountability. Reflect on mistakes with compassion towards self and others. That's really important, to be able to talk about things that have gone wrong and have some compassion around that, and to really amplify diverse voices. We think about diversity at Psych Hub in all different kinds of ways: color, size, clothing, accents, socioeconomic status, even geography. You talked about rural versus urban, right? All of these things are things that bring diversity, and we don't even realize our unconscious bias that we have when dealing with it. So it's really important that sometimes we even allow people the space to educate us about what they're going through from the diversity lens that they're in.
So really thinking about what it is that you can do to encourage these kind of healthy or safe behaviors at work. I love it when I see people taking pictures of our slides because we're really hoping that you get something that you can take with you out of this. So really thinking about how you can support employees or leaders, because I think that we're all in it together. So how you can really understand when people make mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and how you kind of repair from that, become human, and also talk about how you may want to handle it differently. And then also really thinking about how do we challenge the status quo, and this is the part you may think about advocacy. What do you do to change the culture when it may be a few more vocal people that have got a culture out there that may not be what you want? What is your role in going through these? So we'll pause if anyone wants to comment on these reflection questions as well. How are we on time? Okay, that's what I was like. Let me see. I want to get into normalizing mental health conversations. I want to, okay, good. I want to get to this concept of, has anyone here heard of motivational interviewing? Oh, good. We've got like an audience that we can introduce you to a whole piece here. So motivational interviewing is a technique that is used in therapy and is evidence-based, but it's one of my favorites because I think it's really a workplace skill that you don't have to be a clinician or a practitioner to use. Really looking at these, I'm actually going to go through in terms of these kind of 4 components so that you can take these with you. Open-ended questions. Instead of, this makes me think about when my daughter comes home from school and I say, did you have a good day? She'll say, yes, and then I hear nothing about her day. If I say, tell me something about something that happened at your day, she's more likely to pick something and open it up. So I think that that's a skill. I'm not doing therapy with my kid, by the way. So it's really something that you can do when you're talking amongst your staff is like, how is it going for you? I like your example around someone who needs a mental health sabbatical to some extent. When you think about, hey, it's been really busy at work, what's that like for you? Asking open-ended questions. Another piece here is affirmations. So really kind of talking to someone, giving them the piece of sort of this positive component of what it is that they are being able to do is, hey, you've showed up to work every day when it has been so stressful here. I know it's been hard for you, but I appreciate that and the team appreciates that. Reflective listening is really, it's kind of this piece of kind of validating what someone is saying to you, giving that back to them so that they feel like they are heard, and then summarizing the components of hearing everything that is going together. These are called ORs. You don't need to know the fancy acronym, but these are kind of 4 concrete skills that sound a lot fancier when you call them motivational interviewing, but I think they're just basic skills that any of us can use when we're creating a community.
Will we be able to give them access to these slides if they want them?
I will talk to Carrie about that.
Okay. And you know, we have, as we were mentioning, we have a product called Mental Health Ally, which is a training solution, and we have one that is Mental Health Ally for Hospitality that I was saying that we did in partnership with the National Restaurant Association. So we do have one that does do training and helps train, and it also has hundreds and hundreds of videos in it as well.
I'm kind of trying to do the quick and dirty version of what some of this looks like. So these are all resources that are available that we wanted to make sure that you had. If you go to YouTube, we have lots of short videos that is available to the public. Yeah, I was like, yes, take pictures of this. If there is like kind of one link that you get here, you can go to our website and there's resource guides. The one I really like is the communication guide. I think sometimes we get hung up on saying the right thing and then don't talk about it. The communication guide on our website can help on how to talk about these short videos. You can share with your colleagues, with your friends, your family too. as Marjorie mentioned, our hospitality mental health ally hub. This was a short video.
Can we play it?
Oh, I'm good with. I have no idea how to make this video play. Could you help me?
I will try. We did have some issues with ones that were embedded in a.
If it works, we could
If
play
it
it for
works,
you.
I would like it's under 2 minutes because I watched it this morning just to make sure. Things you can't do with the clicker.
Mental health impacts us all personally and professionally. In the hospitality industry, individuals experience both a rewarding and challenging profession that is often fast-paced and high pressure. To ensure hospitality workers receive the support they need, more and more companies are creating
Can you hear?
safe spaces and resources
Our tech
where
friends can
mental
turn it up a
health
little
issues
bit.
can be addressed. To help, Psych and the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation have partnered to create the Hospitality Mental Health Ally Certificate, a series of courses, videos, and resources available to the hospitality industry to support their employees' mental health needs.
It's scary to show up, to walk out on the corner and say, I need help. And so we live in a time where we can gather this information and see it online or in a book or on a podcast. And so the more platforms that people get to share that experience, the better.
With the Hospitality Mental Health Certificate, you will be equipped to confidently discuss topics such as stress management, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, and conflict resolution. Your team is your business's most valuable asset, so be an ally.
I thought that was so, timely that we just are releasing this product and we were here, so I wanted to share that. Do you want to go back to that first set of questions so we can just wrap?
Yeah, there we go. There's that first set of questions. So I think what we want to do is think about how have your thoughts changed? What are the components that you can think about in terms of these key components as you walk away from our conversations today? So people with mental health conditions are as capable as others in the workplace. Getting help with substance use issues is a sign of weakness. And I would talk to someone if I were experiencing depression or anxiety. As you can tell, some of these questions are about how we feel about mental health in others and how we feel about mental health in ourselves. These are not like a kind of true false piece. I think that they're much more nuanced than kind of what do the reactions to these bring up for you. Does anyone want to share kind of your reactions to these from the beginning, from the end, just in general as we wrap up?
I'm gonna come right over here and then I'll come visit you.
On the getting help with substance use issues is a sign of weakness. I didn't catch the beginning, but obviously that's a trick question. Getting help with substance use issues is absolutely a sign of strength and is it's something really, really hard to do. But I think that providing support to someone who seems like they may be having substance use issues is a really delicate balance because it's the kind of thing people are extremely uncomfortable sharing about. So I think you could, I don't know, my personal opinion would be to unless it's a major place in unless it's a major problem in the workplace, starting with a gentle suggestions or a gentle approach would be good. So that's just my take on it.
I really appreciate it. It is a very delicate balance, and you're right. And I think just to leave on the note, so thank you for sharing, to leave on the note about listening, I think, listen, we all need to be there for other people, and we need to be there for ourselves. We have a suicide epidemic. We have an addiction epidemic. We're having a mental health crisis. There are not enough providers to meet the demand. And so we kind of all have to be there for each other. For ourselves, we have to ask for help and to be there for each other. And really the most important thing is that we just listen. And if we're just there and, even just say, how do you feel? Or is there anything I can do to help? Right? That's like such a nice way to just invite people to share without feeling like you have to solve it. Because we always say that that it's better to have the person tell you what you can do rather than you feel like it. But we've all been there, right? You're like, oh, this person needs help, I don't know what to do. And we get stressed out because we want to help solve, but really it's okay. Like, check in with yourself and say, this is not my problem. I'm not the one that didn't have enough money to pay my rent, or you have that boundary, which was one of the tips. But that it's okay to say, how can we help you and support you going through this hard time?
I was just going to say something on the first one. People with mental health conditions are as capable as others in the workplace. And just a general statement from things I've seen is they definitely are until they're not. They throw themselves into work sometimes because that's all they have. And then you see them break. And then that's when, unfortunately, sometimes it's not being in a position to say something to them, but seeing it happen, it's hard. The company that I work for now, it's good, but I come from a different company, 14 years there, and to see, it was corporate. So to see some of the struggles that people face, it's like they come in with a smile on, everything's great, they, kill it at their job, but then when things start to crumble, you can tell, because then it's just, they're not doing anything. But then if they don't speak up, it's hard. But again, I don't know, just a general thought that they are until they're not, and hopefully it's good to get them before.
It's such a great point, because that's just it. The thing with mental health is that you could be great for a series of time, but then something's going to go wrong. It's life, right? Things go wrong, and we need that reserve to get us through those times. But if you're already at your breaking point when things go wrong, you can snap. And that's really the theme of this, which is we got to put these communities, these stop breaks in place so that we're prepared when those things don't go right, that we know what to do. Because when you're in it, it's just too hard.
Awesome.
I could talk about this all day.
And I could listen to you ladies talk about this all day. This is such an important topic. They're going to be here for a few more minutes before our next session, which is at 2:45. Ladies, thank you so much. It was such an informative session. We definitely will hope to have you back next year. I heard a rumor maybe on center stage. So thank you so much, and now here for questions.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you all as well, just for making the commitment to show up today.